Welcome to the Learning Reinvented Podcast, brought to you by myself, Katie Godden, and the team from The Learning Effect. There are lots of learning podcasts out there, so we wanted to do something slightly different. This week, we're discussing engineering and training. I'm delighted to welcome Annette Kempf to the podcast. Thank you for joining me. Would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Thank you, Katie. I will start to introduce myself. My name is Annette Kempf. So this is the German pronunciation. In English, it's Annette. I'm an electronics and electrical engineer and graduated first of class in Nuremberg. I've been working in the so-called embedded domain since I graduated. And many people don't know embedded. So what's embedded? It's the electronics and software for special devices. You find it in medical devices, in the automotive industry, and in consumer products and many places. And it's connected to the microcontroller, and you program the software, which requires electronical engineering know-how and computer science know-how. It's a mixture and it's a cross-domain. You find it in many, many areas. So many companies have embedded software engineers in addition to their normal workforce. So this is me. I've been working in this area for plastic producing machines, blow molding and injection molding machines, and for automotive industry. I also supported wind energy devices for evaluating quality of lubrication within wind energy. So there are many, many domains where this know-how is needed. And since 10 years, I started my own company, which is called Eclipseina.
Wow, it sounds like you've got a really broad background, especially in the engineering market. Can you tell us a little bit more how you got into the engineering field?
I was interested in having a job everybody knows, which is the case, was and is still the case with electronics and electrical engineering. And when I graduated, the embedded domain just started to go off. Before, it was almost non-existent, or only few people worked in this area, and it has been growing immensely. In the last 25 years, the workforce within the embedded domain has multiplied by 10. So it has been growing a lot, and meaning that many graduates started in this new domain in comparison to the older stuff for electronics and electrical engineering, like power transformers and so on. I never worked in this field. I've been growing with the embedded field and the embedded domain in my own know-how.
That sounds really interesting and different to the other guests that we've had on this podcast. So it's really interesting to have you on as a guest. Can you describe your business? I know you kind of alluded to that earlier on in the podcast.
Yeah, my business or my company is called Eclipseina, and we have two branches. One is solutions within charging, so electromobility solutions, a topic which I'm not going to talk more about today. And the second branch is our educational branch, where we have still classroom trainings, but the main focus has become e-learning. And e-learning is very, very interesting because it can meet certain needs of engineers, which are important for them. For example, learning on demand. So when you need it, you can learn right now. Another requirement of the engineers is to have a technical content visualized, to see what you're talking about. This is very important. You can have it on slides, but also to have some animations is, of course, very helpful to see what technical topics you actually talk about. Often their knowledge is in a different depth depending on the studies they did before, if they are coming from computer science or from electronics or electrical engineering or even mechanics. So this e-learning landscape should give them background information whenever they need it. They need also access to some kind of connected know-how. And what engineers usually really need is this on-demand connected to what they are actually working on, some knowledge management, search functionality. So you search, read, and learn. And these requirements resulted in the learning landscape of the Embedded Academy, where we have different possibilities to access or visualize the information. So you can use it as a simple knowledge maze to say, okay, this topic, I'm searching and I'm learning this, to learn dedicated topics. But we also now go more and more into providing packages to say, if you want to learn this topic in a broader scope, then this is your learning journey. Please start with this, then take the next one, the next one, the next one. And even bigger from the scope is that we match our content to the required job profiles in the domain. For example, you want to become an embedded software developer and you need onboarding. And you're new in the company, then you have a certain learning journey for your onboarding, or you're an automotive software developer, or you do functionality development for e-mobility. Depending on the job profile, you find the right order to learn step by step and to build your know-how within the Embedded Academy.
I think it's great that you've got a blend of different content on there. So like not just from the content format, for example, video or animation or kind of PDFs, but as well as kind of the ability to be able to search and then put that into a program so people can work their way through that as and when they want to. What type of people are your audience that are purchasing this content? Is it companies or is it individuals?
It's mixed. So it's small to big companies, it's individuals, and we even had professors purchasing the access.
Oh, wow. So do they buy the content from you and use your system, or are they putting it on their own systems?
The experience has shown that they actually access our platform. This has the advantage that we are continuously updating the content and enlarging the portfolio. And the access is not to single courses. We have a concept that you are buying for a time-based access, and then you have access to everything, which is helping to connect the things that you can do some cross-reading. You can go into other courses and come back to where you're actually learning. And of course, if you have an access on a time-based basis, within the last 3 years, almost every year, we doubled the content. So meaning that someone who's purchasing a 1-year access today with the content we are providing will benefit from all the updates and new releases which are upcoming within the full year during the access.
That sounds great. So what sort of challenges are engineering companies facing when they're producing training materials for their people? Because it's not kind of that off-the-shelf topic or content. So it must be slightly different to try and create because it's a different type of topic that you're using.
I would say that the engineering companies usually have their strongest point on the content. So they know the content and you have a very experienced people. But what they usually are lacking is the understanding of a knowledge level of, for example, the new employees. Usually they also do not have education in how to do didactics. And of course, you have to make also clear concepts. So you need a concept, how to structure, how to navigate symbols, color, and so on. And these concepts might not be very complex, but you can imagine this like the rules in traffic. Yeah, traffic signs are also easy to read. Yeah, but if you don't have them, you don't know how to navigate. And a similar thing applies also to the trainings. So you have, for example, the colors. I did a consulting project in another company, so this is kind of a story. And they said, okay, you can take this training material. And I looked through this training material and tried to understand, and I completely failed. I was not able to learn with this training material. At the end, I found out what I need to know by asking people, and then I came back to the training slides and analyzed why I didn't understand. And the reason I didn't understand anything was that they always use the same colors. In every slide, they use the same colors, the same type of colors, but the colors were not used for the same kind of content. So, and this completely kicked me out, because I was kind of memorizing this color means that and that and that from a functionality point of view, and then it changed and it changed and it changed. Within 4 slides, the colors mean 4 times different things. And this is one experience I took into the company and said, okay, we need to find a color concept. Then we have a symbol concept. We have also a concept on how to structure the e-learnings. Yeah? The length of the trainings, to say you have a same kind of length, same kind of structure for every e-learning. So if someone is working within the platform and did the first 2 e-learning lessons and maybe some courses, that they know how it's working, and that their way to find their way around, and the way to find your way around is always the same. Yeah. And in addition to that, so I would say what we heard now is the basics. So the basics you have to do to have good learning content provided to a learner. But there's even more. And in addition to this, we've been analyzing the capabilities of learning, and you will know, and many of the listeners of the podcast will know, for engineers it's often not the case. You need to learn by visualization, by of a technical content, by reading, by listening. And of course, haptics would be good, but haptics is the only possibility we have, is moving the mouse and clicking. But we try to bring all this together, and also at the same time. So you look at some technical drawing, maybe you have even an animation, and you get an explanation at the same time. Or you have the text written and someone is reading it to you. So we have different senses activated at the same time, and this way you're learning more intense and faster. So this is something we did, and we also applied rules concerning the time, so that you don't have text which is too long, that you have breaks, that you have quizzes and so on. So we tried to optimize the learning effect, with the result that it looks easier than other trainings, but it's not easier, it's only better done.
I think that's a great point, and I think it's one that's often kind of missed, where, and I think this especially when lots of training went from kind of face-to-face or online training in webinars during kind of COVID, and people were trying to create online content, e-learning content, and they struggled with it, but purely because without those consistencies and that structure within your content that you're creating, it's really hard or really easy to then confuse people at the end of it, like you described in your example, that using the same color for absolutely everything, and you're not able to then relate to a particular topic, whether it might be that different type of content type. Using symbols as well, that really helps enhance that experience that you're getting. And like you said, even though the topic might not be particularly easy to understand, and it's the same information in both formats, if you break it down and allow people to learn in a more consistent way, it does make it a lot easier for that end user. So there's lots of challenges that are happening now in the world. We've just come out of COVID, everything's gone kind of back to normal, but you're seeing more people working remotely, there's more flexible working, so like less people in the office all the time. How does that change engineers accessing training, or does it?
Yeah, I believe that it changed already. So with this online training, it has become more and more accepted. But during COVID, it was more or less going backwards because everybody created new content very cheaply online. Just it had to be everything online. And now it's getting back to a better quality. So you either do classroom trainings, but if you are creating online training content, it's either really as a webinar where you have direct interaction, or if you are preparing it for a user, the videos are disappearing and real e-learning is occurring more and more. And real e-learning is not like a video which you are watching. An e-learning is something where you have to click through, where you have drag and drop, where you have quizzes and so on. So for example, one of my requirements towards the e-learning team is that I want to have maximum 1 minute where you get information in one flow, and then the learner has to do something again, to click, to whatever, do something. And I think this is important to stay active. So this is the content point of view. Concerning the future of engineering training, if you look into history, it was always discussed, if something new is introduced, the old will not be existent anymore. Like in the old times, everybody was talking and by speech conveying information, like we are doing now with the podcast. And then books came. Yeah, so we have still talking, you have books, you have TV, you have a PC, you have exercises, practical exercises, and you have videos, and you have e-learning. And I think everything has advantages and disadvantages, and each type of learning has strong and weak points. And depending on what you want to learn, what type of content it is, then a different way of presenting this information is useful. Looking at the technical content, for example, the creating e-learning courses in the quality like we are doing it, it's a lot of effort. And effort means that it's expensive. It's also higher cost. You can do this for topics which are relatively stable. If you have knowledge which is very dynamic, or also very specific, you only have a very small user base which needs this know-how, then you will not be able to afford creating e-learning. And then classroom trainings might be useful. Or if it's, for example, software architecture is a very enhanced knowledge within this embedded domain. And there, the exchange between different software architects meeting in trainings is useful. So this you would do in a classroom training and not as e-learning. So I think depending on what's the number of people who need to know it, the dynamics behind, and the representation of a technical content, all these topics are getting together, and then you have to decide which is the right means for teaching. And you will always have books. So more or less, I would say this was for future of engineering training, more looking backward, and looking into the future, what's still not that much implemented within the embedded domain. In other areas, yes, it's gaming. So there's still potential to grow and to make some cool new things, and will certainly also grow in this direction with the Embedded Academy.
I think it's really interesting what you've said, because I think it kind of resonates with a lot of different industries as well. So if you're creating that evergreen content that's going to have more longevity than other content, it's really great to kind of invest the time and the cost that it takes to create that content, as opposed to something that might only be relevant for a month or so or whatever. Or like you said, to a small number of people. I think you really got to understand those bits before you start kind of jumping in just to create content, because like you said, some of it you don't necessarily need all of that time and effort to go into. You might just be needing to relay that content over to people, or that information over to people, but putting all the time and effort in might not be worth it. And another point is just to breaking that content down as well. So if you are, I think e-learning as well doesn't have to necessarily just be a SCORM course. We can create that in lots of different versions now, and we're starting to see that a lot more in regards to kind of systems that are available to us. So you're able to have that blend of kind of, you might have a video, you might have a quiz in there, you might have an animation, a PDF, whatever that content format might be, but you're putting that together to create that journey for someone. But by creating it in those little blocks, it's a lot easier to then kind of replace those pieces as well. So if it does become outdated and you need to update something, it's a lot easier just to take that little brick out and update that, rather than having to change the whole course. So I think that's a really good approach to take when you are doing that.
This was a very good summary. Thank you.
What does the future for yourself and Eclipseina look like for you?
We will continue the path what we started, and there are still many things we want to do. So for one thing, right now we have search capabilities, and we can display the courses. But what I would like to do in the long run is to create kind of a Wikipedia of learning for the embedded domain, meaning that in addition to these courses and e-learning lessons, I would like to provide job profiles which are clearly described, and different pages, what you need to know, and that you can start with reading and then get the right learning content, so that you are guided in your learning journey, whatever topic you're searching at. And of course, there's still a lot to do, and there's still a lot of know-how we want to present in addition. So we'll continue this path and continue to provide more benefit for our customers.
That sounds awesome. So if people want to follow your journey, especially sort of the people in the engineering field, how do they go about doing so?
What we are providing is, for example, information on YouTube on a regular basis. So Eclipseina has a YouTube channel where we have even some free content for certain learning units. And we have live events every other month where we inform about what's new. We have the trailers there, we have some free glossary units, and we have some technical talks as well. So I'd be happy if you join our YouTube channel of Eclipseina. Concerning the seminars, we still also have classroom trainings and the new e-learning which have been released, and video and some other information you might want to have. We introduced Embedded Academy group at LinkedIn, which now already has more than 5,000 people within the group. We would be also happy if you join. And of course, we have our website, embeddedacademy.com, where there is a news page where you can see within the last weeks or months which were the releases we've been doing. This is not only for the world outside, but it's also for our customers who have signed in, for example, for a year. They have a possibility to check out on a regular basis what was new, which new releases might be of interest for me, what I want to learn as well.
That's great. We'll put all of those links that you've mentioned in our show notes below. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great. It's been a great insight into the world of sort of engineering and how you guys are doing training as well. And hopefully people will get in touch with you after this episode.
Thank you very much for having me in your podcast. It was a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Learning Reinvented podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. If you've not already done so, please follow our podcast. And if the Learning Effect can help you and your organisation, please do get in touch. You can find both James and Katie on LinkedIn, and our contact details are in the show notes below.